Irish Independent is alongside me in studio. Stephen Ferris is on the line as well. Ireland have named their team for Saturday's game against Wales. No Tadhg Furlong, no Ian Henderson. The big stories, 5 changes in total from the side that beat Italy last time out. Andrew Porter and James Ryan come in. Chris Farrell replaces the injured Robbie Henshaw in the centre, and Cian Healy and CJ Stander coming in for Jack McGrath and Jack Conan, who both dropped to the bench. Down in Carton House today, Joe Schmidt was speaking to the media and he was accentuating the positives. He reckons the absence of Henderson and Furlong means the likes of Ryan and Porter have an opportunity to prove themselves at the very highest level.
They're world-class players. You don't suddenly replace world-class players, but we're a lot more focused on who we do have. And who we do have is Andrew Porter, who's a really promising young player that we're excited about. James Ryan, likewise. Chris Farrell, I've been talking to Chris Farrell for 3 or 4 years, and he's been a project, a long-term project, and I thought he did really well against Argentina and only a second test. So yeah, we're short on experience, and we're up against a team that are welcoming back 3 lines while we see 3 disappear. So yes, that's not ideal, but at the same time, if you want to learn, what better environment than in what will be a really white-hot atmosphere in the Aviva on Saturday.
Rory, you were down in Carton House today. Joe Schmidt, his job as coach is to accentuate the positives, and he can't get down in the dumps about losing one of his 3 world-class players in Tadhg Furlong. He still has Murray and Sexton. How big a blow do you sense this is, though? And it sounds as though it's something they've been preparing for probably since the Italy game. Yeah,
I mean, I was down at the open session at Lone last week, and none of those players were training. They prepared with this team. Albeit James Ryan wasn't training either last week, but they had, I think Jack Conan was jumping in the second row. It's definitely a blow. There's no hiding it. I don't think Joe Schmidt was trying to hide it today, but he's trying to accentuate the faith that he has in the players that are in, and that's his job. That's what he has to do, and they are good players. They're all good players, but Joe Schmidt says it's an inexperienced team. They've got 604 caps between them, but the vast majority of those, I think it's 500 and something of those are between 9 players, and then there's 6 who have about 27. So you've 6 very inexperienced players in amongst a really experienced core, and I guess it's up to the experienced players, the Rory Best, the Johnny Sexton, to Conor Murray, to guide the likes of Andrew Porter through this, because this is the biggest game of, I'd say, 4 or 5 of these players' lives altogether. Ireland would normally try and drip feed players in, give them, they've all got caps here and there, but this is a step up from anything they've done before. And I think the focus in particular would rest on Porter, because he's just so inexperienced in the tight head position. Brilliant athlete, really good player. He's going to win a lot of caps for Ireland, but he's going to have to keep proving himself, and this is the biggest testing ground that he's found so far. Yeah, simply like any young player, we don't know what he can achieve until he's thrown in at the deep end, and he's really been thrown in at the deep end this week. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think Andrew Porter is going to achieve an awful lot in an Ireland jersey. I think he can get up to close to Tadhg Furlong's levels, but even Tadhg Furlong struggled in his first season. It's a very difficult position. Whatever about the ball carrying and the skills around the park, Porter has that on spades. He's really talented, but he's only ever started 5 senior professional games in the tight end position. He obviously got 77 minutes under his belt against Italy, but this is another step up. I fully believe that he's going to have a great career, and I think he'll do okay, but I think until he goes into that first scrum and comes out of it okay and gets through a body work, 5, 10, 15 minutes, you have to have doubts about him. It's just natural. So it's the biggest day of his career, it's the biggest day of Dan Levy's career, it's the biggest day of James Ryan's career, Jacob Stockdale, Chris Farrell. That's 5 players off the top of my head who've never played in a game of this magnitude before. An interrupted night's sleep on Friday. Well, they are anyway.
Stephen, Tadhg Furlong, Ian Henderson out. The Welsh scrum coach and the Welsh scrum, they're going to be rubbing their hands with glee at this news.
Yeah, although I think the lads coming in will be able to do a job, I don't think it would be the scrum that would be worrying me. Samson Lee, Rob Evans, really good players, but I think the scrum's going to be 50-50. It's the minutes that the ball is going to be in play. These guys will just not have experienced the ball being in play for close to 50 minutes in a game. You're playing in the Pro 14, and it's the ball's not in play hardly for 40 minutes of the match, and that's where it takes it out of you. You watch Porter a couple of weeks ago when he was playing against Italy, looked fantastic, but the pace of play is just going to be so much greater. So it's that kind of area of the game that I would slightly worry about. I was nervous getting into this game before the team announcement today, and I'm even more nervous now just because of the quality that the Welsh are bringing back in and the quality that the Irish are losing.
And this game last season, the ball was in play for more than any other game in the Six Nations, so it's really going to be intensified. We've been hearing a lot, not just for the last week but for the last couple of years, about what makes Tadhg Furlong world class, from his ability in the scrum, his ball handling. Liam Tolan was talking about his ability to unlock space that often goes unnoticed at times. It is too much to expect Stephen Andrew Porter to be at that level on Saturday, but what are Porter's strengths?
Well, it's his ball carrying, it's his work rate. I think he's got confidence, he believes in himself. I was down in the RDS when Ulster went down and left with their tail between their legs, and Porter was running through a couple of boys, ran through Stockdale, got an offload. I think he's in a real good vein of form. So given this opportunity, I hope he grabs it. I hope, early on something doesn't happen where, he starts to doubt himself. But I think he's just got, he's a huge man. He is a brute of a fella. So he certainly looks the part. He played really well against Italy in the couple of games that I've seen him play for Leinster. He's been phenomenal. So, this guy has got a lot of good attributes. And, just looking at the two teams, there are so many athletes in the two squads. You just look at that Welsh squad as well, and that's what makes me nervous. There's just a lot of guys in there that can run and run hard all day long. But Andrew Porter, for me, is one of those guys.
He is only 22, Rory, but as you mentioned, 5 senior games at tight head, massively inexperienced. Why then does Joe Schmidt seem to have more faith in Porter than he does in John Ryan, who, as Andy Dunn mentioned on Wednesday Night Rugby last night, I think has played 8 times against the Scarlets pack, so would know this Welsh pack inside out? Well,
Joe has been accused of being a conservative selector in the past, and I think this puts paid to that a little bit. John Ryan's not enjoying his best season. He's been second choice for Munster behind Stephen Archer all year, and it was almost a bit of a surprise to see him called in to the squad ahead of him. I know he's a body of work behind them last season. I think John Ryan's probably paying a little bit, and it might be a little bit harsh, but for that last scrum in Paris that almost cost Ireland the game, he got popped, he struggled, and I think a little bit of the faith that the coaches had in him possibly went out. And Porter's form, as Stephen said, Porter's form is really, really excellent. He is the future. He is, by 2019, whatever doubts we have now, we're hoping will be long gone, and he'll be coming on after 50 minutes to replace Tadhg Furlong and add impetus to the Ireland team. It's an investment in him, but I don't think they'd be making that investment if they didn't believe that he was ready to do it. They're obviously going to have fears, that they're not talking about the fact that it is such a big step up for him, but I think he's the better player of the two, albeit the less experienced one. Ryan's 29, I think, and he's a lot more work under his belt, but a combination of his form and the upside of Porter, I think, has gotten him over the line. With Ryan, to come on in the last 20 minutes, half an hour, just to kind of close it out.
Ian Henderson's absence has probably been overshadowed, Stephen, because Tadhg Furlong isn't playing, and the fact as well that they have Devin Toner available to come in. Who then plays on that tight head side of the second row?
Yeah, it's an interesting point. I think probably the bigger man. You're going to look like getting Dev in there. He's been there, he's done it, he's got the experience, he knows what to do when the going gets tough. And I have a lot of time for Devin Toner. I have a lot of respect for Devin. Some people have written him off over the last couple of years, but he's Mr. Consistent, week in, week out. He never lets the team down, and I think he'll do exactly the same against the Welsh team. Look, I think Ian Henderson's a huge loss. He is definitely a huge loss. Look at the guy who made the penultimate carry over in France to give that platform, to give Ireland to go forward in the 82nd minute or whatever it was. It was Ian Henderson. He just keeps on going. He gets over the gain line. He's physical, and that's exactly what you need against the Welsh. Look, Devin Toner won't mind me saying this here. He's not as a good athlete as Ian Henderson. That's what you're losing. But at the same time, you've got the big man in there who's going to guarantee a good quality line-out ball, and we know how dangerous Ireland can be off first phase ball. So, you're going to miss a lot. Who's going to be behind the tight head? For me, it's going to be the big fella.
I think it's weird as well that we're talking about a tight head and a second row, but we're actually going to lose. Ireland are going to lose 2 of their playmakers because Furlong and Henderson have taken over a lot of the first receiver job, and I don't think they make the call as to what they're supposed to. I think Johnny Sexton is still in their ear from behind them, but still their ability to make those passes under pressure and select the right option has been pretty good in this championship, and it's transferring across to Porter and Ryan, which is just another job for them to think about. I think that's something that in years gone by we'd be more worried about the scrum and all that sort of stuff, but there's another layer of that to that. Ireland's game plan has moved on, and the forwards are passing the ball a lot more. The replacements are very skillful, but again, just the pressure is going to be on them a whole lot more on Saturday.
Yeah, we know that's probably not really Devin Toner's game, but on James Ryan, and again, he's so inexperienced at this level, and you probably have to spend so much time focusing on getting the basic right in the scrum that maybe, Stephen, it's too much to expect that he will have that sort of ball playing role in this game.
Yeah, I think what he does really well is that he gives Ireland a bit of momentum. He's a good carrier. You've seen that over in France. He carried the ball very well for the amount of time he was on the pitch. And he almost kind of comes across as an extra back rower at times, the way with his athleticism. He seems like he's got a good engine also. So for me, yes, it's the biggest game of his life, going up against Wales at home, who are playing some fantastic rugby. The brand of rugby that they're playing, it really is good. But I think it'll suit guys like James Ryan, somebody like him who is able to get around the pitch, and when he gets the ball, he has a bit of time, he's able to get Ireland over the gain line. I think he's going to tag in well. Let big Devin Toner do all the hard work in and around the breakdown, probably hit more rucks than he will. But let's see him get his hands on the ball and give Ireland that momentum that they're going to need.
Generally, when we're analysing the pack, we tend to do it in front row, second row, back row. But how important is it then up along that line of, say, tight head, number 5, open side, the relationship that they have together and the understanding they have?
I think they're all that good a quality of player that it's not like the backs where they need to strike up relationships and they need to know what lines are running, etc. I think the boys, they've trained very hard together over the last number of weeks, and I think they'll be very confident whoever's standing beside them. If the team selection there had been another couple of changes, I think they would have been happy. Joe Schmidt has so much faith in his squad, and I'm sure they've been interchanging throughout the team weeks of training. So for me, those guys are going to feel comfortable with one another. They're going to trust one another, and I think that's the most important thing come Saturday. They got to trust the guy inside them and outside them to do their own work and make their own decisions. And if they can do that, I believe that they can come away with the result. I think Ireland are just a better team.
Yeah, I just seem to have lost Stephen there for a moment. Oh, he's back.
But I think they can match him physically up front.
Yeah, just what Stephen was
cut off there,
trusting.
guys?
You did for a moment, Stephen, but we'll come back to you in a second. Just what he's talking about there on the trust of the guys beside you. Like, generally, Ireland have one of the most experienced front rows in the world.
Yeah.
Okay, they're losing one of them, but they still have Rory Best and Cian Healy either side or alongside Andrew Porter, and he can lean on those guys quite literally.
Oh, absolutely, and he has good support from behind him, as Stephen said. With Toner's strength coming through. They live Andrew Porter, since he switched to tight head, he's been live scrummaging against either Jack McGrath or Cian Healy on a weekly basis. So that's got to stand to him. That's the two of the best loose head props in the world. And even as you go down the loose head ranks in Leinster, there's pretty good quality throughout. That's why they moved them across, because they felt like they could afford to do it. So yeah, the Irish scrum as an 8 is still very strong. Rob Evans and the Scarlets front row are very good, but he's probably not the most destructive loose head in the world. Joe Schmidt suggested that he's a little bit illegal today as well, which was interesting. There's been long held, I think, Irish opinion behind the scenes that Wales are a little bit illegal at scrum time, but they always get away with it, and they did a very good job against England in the scrum. So they've obviously been working on that area. So it's going to be a challenge for him. But yeah, he's a lot to lean on, and I think all of the young players have someone of much more experience beside them. And there's inexperience in every department other than half back. But again, there's Rob Kearney's alongside Stockdale, Bundy Aki may be new to the international rugby, but he's a lot of minutes under his belt at the top level in Super Rugby and everything. So there's a bit of comfort in that, I suppose.
The back row then, obviously O'Brien is still out and Jamie Heaslip is still a bit away from coming back, but Ireland are missing senior players, but so too are Wales. They're missing Warburton and Faletau in particular in that back row. The players that have come in then for Wales in that back row, have they been able to step up towards the mark that you would expect from Warburton and Faletau, Stephen?
Yeah, I think they have. Navidi has been really a class act in a couple of games, keeping Tipuric off the team. I think Tipuric come on against England, played some fantastic rugby in the last 15-20 minutes. Ross Moriarty coming back after the Lions tour, had to have surgery on his back. He looks like he's finding some form also. And then for me, I think the surprise back rower from the Welsh point of view is Shingler. I think he's been playing some tremendous rugby. He was a class act in the last couple of weeks, and he seems to have been able to take himself to another level. I've played against him a few times against the Scarlets, and he was always just a player that would dig in, week out, but he seems to have raised his game a couple of levels. I don't know where it's come from, but he looks really fit, he looks really athletic, looks strong, and he's able just to burst through tackles. So for me, he's also a really good line-out option. So I think they have a good balance in there at the minute, and that's what Warren Gatland's sticking with. And the Irish lads, Peter O'Mahony, CJ Stander, Levy, are going to have the work cut out.
Was CJ Stander always nailed on to keep his place? I know earlier in the week there seemed to be a little bit of talk that maybe Conan might oust him.
I think he probably was. I think just, he has that experience. Someone pointed it out to me that, when Keith Earls chased down the winger in the kind of closing moments, it was CJ who was on his shoulder. His work rate is off the charts, and I think that probably gets him over the line ahead of Conan, who has admitted to kind of switching off during games a little bit and letting games pass him by. It's interesting he got the nod on the bench ahead of the more versatile Jordy Murphy, but there is a slight concern with CJ Stander in that, if you remember back to that Italy game and the line that Jack Conan took for Conor Murray's try, I'm not sure CJ would have delivered that in the same way, and maybe that's the next level that CJ needs to get to. I've heard people talk about his passing having improved this year and all that, but I think he's still, when given an option, he'll still put the head down and go forward, and he's really good at it. But Wales have dealt with that in the past, and I'm not sure ground and pound is going to be good enough against this Welsh team.
Chris Farrell, Stephen, selected to replace the injured Robbie Henshaw. The talk around Farrell reminds me a bit of the talk around Peter Crouch when they say he's got good feet for a big man. All I'm hearing about Chris Farrell is he's got great hands for a big man, and that was one of the question marks maybe in his first couple of appearances for Munster, that he started slowly, and Bernard Jackman was telling everybody that would listen, no, this guy's hands are what separate him from everybody else. As either a 12 or a 13, they turned him from a 12 into a 13. Was that, again, with Ringrose been out injured, is that a very straightforward decision to bring in Farrell?
I think so. I think he's been involved in all the match day squads in terms of obviously not being in the match day 23, but being in the warm-ups before the games. I think he knows all the plays inside out. I actually spent a lot of time with Chris when we were both injured back up at Ulster. He had a bad foot injury, and I obviously was recovering from an ankle injury, and we spent a lot of time together, and he was a very, very frustrated guy, but everybody knew he sort of had a lot of potential. And he went, I'm not going to get an opportunity here. McCluskey, Marshall, Cave, Payne, all those guys were all ahead of him. And he said, I'm gonna go away and I'm trying to learn my trade. And that is what he's done. He's come back. He's now signed for Munster. He's been brilliant. He's a big, long, rangy fella. He's got a bit of pace about him, and I think his passing game, he's a very wristy pass, loves to put a lot of spin on the ball, and in big games that's important. But yeah, I think Joe just really likes him. He's the type of fella, he's really easy going, just takes everything in his big long stride. And yeah, I really hope it goes well for him, because he's such a nice fella, but he's definitely not going to experience anything like this in the past, because this is just going to be up on another level.
Those players you talk about, he was behind at Ulster, like he's flown past all of those now with Ireland. Is it physically that he's developed? Is his skill set that he's developed since he left Ulster all those years ago?
I don't think so, no. I think it's just that he's had a run of games. At Ulster, how can you, to kind of give Ulster a bit of credit here, that, they had these guys ahead of Chris at the time, and he had to prove himself. And to prove himself, he had to go away because he hadn't played any rugby due to injuries. So I think a run of games, a run of fitness. I know he injured himself in the autumn internationals, but he's bounced back from that. And he must be doing something right, because if Joe Smith rates him highly, then he's on the right path. But he's got a lot of talent, a lot of ability. He's a big guy. Him and Bundiaki in the centre, it's pretty daunting for any backline to come up against. But it's going to be interesting to see how he goes. And as I say, I hope it goes well for him, because there's been so much talk over Robbie Henshaw, Gary Ringrose over the last couple of weeks to see who's going to be put in there. The pressure is going to be on his shoulders. He's got big shoulders, we'll wait and see.
Yeah, in November, McCluskey, Farrell seemed to be a thing. That which of them would be the backup? Was it that Farrell was very much seen as literally quite a safe pair of hands?
I think there's a bit of that. I think Farrell, I think they like his coachability. That they apparently, you know, if something doesn't go right and they tell him it doesn't go right, the next day he'll have fixed it. And Bernard Jackman was in Dublin yesterday talking about him, and he harked back to a game Grenoble played in Clermont when they were 15-0 down, and usually the French team would put their tail between their legs and give up, and he said Farrell just kept taking the game to Clermont on his own, and the rest followed, and he was just really impressed by that. He talked up his skill set. And Joe, you know, look, for whatever reason, Stuart McCluskey just doesn't seem to, you know, probably needs to wait for the next Irish coach to get his run, because his form is often deserved more with Ulster. Whereas Farrell, you know, Joe's been in Farrell's ear even when he was in Grenoble, trying to get him back. He's been, you know, giving him tips on what to work on. He was always earmarked to come into the squad as soon as he rejoined Munster. Jackman was saying that he had offers from Saracens, he had offers from Bordeaux. Apparently all the Irish provinces were in for him as well, and he chose Munster. He's chosen pretty well. He got good timing there with Jaco Tauda getting an injury as well. He's been their, you know, their leading centre all season, and he was, you know, he was the obvious next man in. It did well against Argentina. That, you know, probably struggled a little bit against Fiji, but himself and Aki went well against Argentina. And, you know, like Andrew Porter, it's a big step up for him. But he looks like he's got all the raw materials to make it. It's just, again, proving it in the white heat.
You said right at the start, Stephen, that you were a little bit nervous even before the team announcement, and it has been interesting listening to all the analysis right throughout the week from Rory and Eddie on Monday night, that there's a general sense of nervousness, particularly I think around Ireland defensively, and some of the opportunities we gave up to a France and an Italy side that look as though they're possibly the two worst teams in the competition.
Yeah, for sure. And that's the worrying thing. I don't think Ireland have been tested that much in defence, and this Welsh team will definitely test them. They conceded a couple of soft scores against Italy, and it was just almost too easy for them. And whether that's, you know, you've got the game won, you've switched off, I'm not so sure. But this is going to be a completely different test. This Welsh team are probably the team in form and playing the best brand of rugby. Yes, they got beaten by England. However, I thought they played a better brand of rugby than England. England just controlled the game with their kicking game. And I think Ireland are going to have to do exactly that. Get Johnny Sexton, Conor Murray to make sure and put pressure on Steph Evans and Hadley Parks, who's new in there, and just make sure that everything that they throw, the Welsh throw at Ireland, they got to deal with it. They've got two really good experienced guys in there at 9 and 10 that have been doing a sterling job for Ireland over the last couple of seasons. In my eyes, it's the best scrum half in the world, and maybe, you know, the best out half in the world. So those guys are going to have to control the game, and if they do that, if they do get control in the game and it doesn't break up the way the Welsh want it, and talk of scoring 4 tries to get a bonus point and all in the media that this week, that's just Gatland mind games. And the Irish lads will just be thinking, guys, let's go out, play our own game, let's put the pressure on them and build a score, because if they get control from me, they win the game.
Andy Farrell was talking this week about the style of play that Wales are going with, describing it as Howley ball. I think it was put out as being Scarlet's ball initially, saying that after coming back from the Lions, they wanted to play a more expansive game, 2 pivot players. He's made that change. They're reaping the rewards on the back of it. You would have worked in the Lions back in 2009. How's he evolved as a coach, and the way he wants this Wales side to play? How's that evolved?
Yeah, I did work with him. I'm not sure how much I learnt off him. And same with Warren Gatland. Like, to be honest, I didn't really have much of a relationship with either of the two guys. But that doesn't necessarily mean that I don't rate them as coaches. I think they've done a brilliant job with Wales over the years, obviously with the Lions as well. They trust one another, Gatland and Howley. The Welsh guys seem to respond. As soon as they put that red jersey on for Wales, it just goes into onto another level, and they play with so much passion, so much pace, and it's really hard for teams to deal with. But for me, like, you know, Rob Howley's Rob Howley, and I can't speak too much about him because I only spent maybe 4 or 5 weeks with him on a Lions tour before having to head home injured on that. So yeah, he's got them playing a good brand of rugby. Whether or not it's all down to him, I think a lot of that a lot of that credit's got to go to the Scarlets boys who are producing that kind of performance week in, week out in the Scarlets jersey.
It's been really interesting this week. The amount of love that's going Rob Howley's way is unbelievable. Joe Schmidt was talking about him again today. I don't know, is it trying to make up for the Sean O'Brien comments after the Lions? Is it trying to undermine Warren Gatland and kind of point to the fact that it's his assistants? They were very strong on Robin McBride earlier in the week as well. I haven't quite figured out what the strategy is behind it, but the party line from Ireland this week is that Robbie Howley is a genius, and it's they're coming on very strong, and I'm not entirely sure how to read it.
Now for you, Stephen. He's a genius.
Jeez, right, okay.
It's mind games. This is the Irish version of mind games, trying to get back at Gatland.
The problem is mind games don't work if you can't figure out what's behind it. But you know.
Yeah.
I definitely think that Gatland is going to have something up his sleeve in terms of the way that the Welsh are going to defend or attack. You look at the 2011 World Cup quarter-final, there's been a lot of talk. Shane Williams was in talking with you guys about the chop tackle and identifying that they had the likes of Shawnee O'Brien, myself, Jamie, just taking boys down at the knees and having the likes of the sevens who were playing at that time in getting the ball. So I think he'll have something up his sleeve to deal with Ireland's strengths. But I'm not sure when you have a 9 and 10 in Ireland that are on form that he'll be able to deal with them.
I think the spread has gone from 11 to 10 to 9. It's now into 8 points. Seven points at this stage.
Yeah. It's still big.
Yeah, I managed. I listened to yourself and Eddie on Monday night, and I got straight on the 10 points. I was fully convinced by your negativity. Stephen, what's your prediction then?
It frustrates me to say this, but like Wales feel like Ireland's bogey team for some reason, and I know every team kind of has one. It just feels that way. I know Ireland have a half decent record, but a couple of big losses in the past against the Welsh. They've beaten us in the Aviva Stadium, and they beat us in World Cups. So they'll be getting into this game confident. I still think if Ireland play to their ability, that they'll win the game. The home crowd, I think, has been amazing at the Aviva Stadium as well. Over the last kind of 18 months has been brilliant. So hopefully that atmosphere comes. The weather also might play another part. I think it's due to be dry, so that's obviously going to suit the Welsh. But again, for me, a long-winded answer there to a prediction. I'm going to go for a 3-point Ireland win.
It's understandable that the Welsh, I think, get a little bit pissed off with the Irish attitudes towards them, considering they've won 3 Grand Slams. Yet I'd say if you ask the vast majority of Ireland supporters who've been the better team over the last 15 years, everyone would say Ireland. Yeah,
absolutely. And yes, I went through Warren Gatland's games against Ireland over the years. I think he's played 11, won 7, and his record is slightly favourable. They're very rarely dull. There's usually some sort of dramatic storyline. Stephen's been involved in 1 or 2 himself. And there's always controversy. There's always a bit of chat as well. And they are a difficult team for Ireland to beat. It's not happening this time. For some reason, Irish people always think they're going to beat Wales, and are always really shocked when they don't. But it happens more often than not. More often than not in recent times, marginally. And I have a sneaking suspicion it's going to happen again this weekend, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's going to be an absolute cracker, I think, on Saturday afternoon. We'll have full coverage of the game on Saturdays off the ball from 1 o'clock. Rory, thank you for coming into the studio. Stephen, thanks as always. We shall talk to you very soon. We're going to speak to Billy Joe Padden in a few moments about the Allianz League games this weekend, including Dublin against Mayo. But up next, we're going to hear from heavyweight prospect Niall Kennedy.
The Six Nations on Off the Ball with Vodafone. Official sponsors of the Irish rugby team. We all belong to the team of us.
News Talk Breakfast.
It's about the context, though, and the environment in which women operate and men operate, and the pressure on women to look sexy that is not there for men.
I think where Jennifer Lawrence is right, very, really spot on in this, is this argument that we're having, this discussion we're having today is taken away from what the point is. We're now making a discussion about every single thing that people wear. It is taken away from what the actual issues are.
News Talk Breakfast.
In association with AIR.
Back tomorrow on News Talk.